Welcome to the First Church in Chestnut Hill and to our Sunday service for January 9th, 2022. Welcome if it is your first time, welcome if it is your 100th time. Today we will be marking the Epiphany, which is also called Three Kings Day or Little Christmas, depending on one's tradition. In our tradition, it generally marks the day that you should really start considering taking down your Christmas tree, but I leave that household decorating to your own personal taste. We will now hear the psalm for the day, which is a portion of Psalm 72. Give the king your justice, O God, and your righteousness to a king's son. May he judge your people with righteousness and your poor with justice. May the mountains yield prosperity for the people and the hills in righteousness. May he defend the cause of the poor of the people, give deliverance to the needy, and crush the oppressor. May he live while the sun endures and as long as the moon throughout all generations. May he be like the rain that falls on the mown grass, like showers that water the earth. In his day may righteousness flourish and peace abound until the moon is no more. May the kings of Tarshish and of the isles render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him, all nations give him service. For he delivers the needy when they call, the poor and those who have no helper. He has pity on the weak and the needy and saves the lives of the needy. From oppression and violence he redeems their life, and precious is their blood in his sight.
Today's Bible reading is from the Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Today is celebrated as Epiphany. Epiphany is celebrated on January 6th and marks the final celebratory day of the Christian holiday season. The actual day of Epiphany is a Christian feast day celebrating the revelation of the incarnation of God as Jesus Christ. It is often called Twelfth Night, as it supposedly took the three wise men 12 days to get to Bethlehem to recognize Jesus as the Son of God. While many of us may rush to get our Christmas decorations and the tree down as fast as we can after December 25th, there is still a full week before many practicing Christians complete their celebrations of the birth of Christ. I found out a few interesting facts about January 6th. As early as the 4th century, churches in the Eastern Roman Empire were still celebrating Christmas on January 6th, while those in the West celebrated on December 25th. This is why some people refer to the Feast of Epiphany as Old Christmas. In Spain, children have traditionally had to wait until January 6th to get their gifts. In Scandinavia, they celebrate what they call Little Christmas Eve on December 23rd. In Ireland, they also call Little Christmas Women's Christmas, because Irish men take on the women's household duties that day. Other popular traditions for January 6th include singing, chalking one's door, having your house blessed, eating a Three Kings cake, going to church, and winter swimming. There is indeed something for everyone on the Feast of Epiphany. The Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. The gospel lesson ends here.
Refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears, for thy work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord. Refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears, for my work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord. And there is hope in thine hand, that thy children shall come again to their own mother. And there is hope in thine hand, that thy children shall come again to their own border. Refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears. Thy work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord. There is hope in thine land, that thy children shall come again. Refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears, for thy work shall be rewarded, saith the Lord. Refrain thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears. Thy voice from weeping, and thine eyes from tears.
On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. These three men have journeyed far to find a newborn king. In most translations of Matthew, they are referred to as the wise men. The Greek word is magos, or magi, which is more familiar, I would guess. This was the term used by Babylonians and Persians to describe teachers, astrologers, and those who interpret dreams. The term could also be used for sorcerers and magicians, though that imagery is off-putting to some, like those who think the Harry Potter books will somehow lead you to devil worship. I am not of that opinion, so we will use magi or wise men freely here. But were they kings, the three kings? The word magos does not imply king. That idea seems to have been lifted from the book of Isaiah, in which kings would come to Zion bearing gifts of gold and frankincense. No mention of myrrh, by the way. The image in that sense is used to foreshadow the coming of Jesus as the Messiah. These three visitors, whether kings or not, traveled a long way, and they offered valuable gifts to someone based upon their reading of the stars. Was that a wise thing to do? Notice what they did at the end of the reading, by the way. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Following stars, heeding warnings from dreams, that name Magi certainly fits. In ancient times, the stars were often consulted as a means for predicting the future or understanding the wishes of the gods. And dreams were a similar divine gift that allowed human beings to understand great mysteries or to peer into the future. Dreams figure at a number of parts of the Bible, like the stories of Joseph and his brothers, the sons of Jacob. As we look back onto these stories, we do that with a modern perspective. We do not place the same stock in the predictive nature of stars or dreams. Some still do, of course. Some people read their horoscopes and examine their dreams to help them understand what's going on in their lives. These are ancient ways of trying to figure out what to do. I have my doubts as to their predictive qualities or to their scientific validity, but we can argue about that some other time. Instead, I want to consider the idea that these men are in some way wise. They are called wise men, meaning they are marked by wisdom. This will turn on what was once considered wise compared to what we now consider wise. They were given the name wise men or magi long ago by people who understood wisdom in a different way. It was, in one sense, a job description for a class of educated folks. But what do we think about when we hear the word wisdom? Well, one current dictionary definition of wisdom is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Experience meaning having done things, knowledge meaning knowing things, and good judgment meaning having made the right choices about things. This definition is less dramatic than one might expect, or at least than I expect. It's not some hermit up on a mountain in the Himalayas doling out hard-won advice. It's not some mystic gazing into the heavens to sort out the meaning of life. And it's not three men bearing gifts, following a star and taking advice from angels in dreams. Is any of that what we think of as wise? Even our modern dictionary definition is open to interpretation. Anyone can have some experience just hanging around long enough, age equaling wisdom on that level. That doesn't mean that, it doesn't guarantee that you have learned anything from those experiences. You could still be making all the same bad choices. And what about knowledge? Go to school for long enough and there you are, poof, one of the magi, one of the wise. That may have been a piece of the story because these were educated men on that journey, but I think it is safe to say that knowledge is not the same as wisdom. For example, I had an instructor in seminary who had learned 15 languages, and he was now working on his 16th. It was Old Norse, by the way. Handy. This fellow was without exception the worst teacher I have ever had. And my long-standing revenge against him is to refer to him as such anonymously in sermons. This instructor was personally good at languages, to be sure, but he had no idea how to convey that skill to others or to assist others in the learning process. One does not need to be a good teacher to be wise, I suppose, but just having an enormous store of knowledge does not seem to be in and of itself the source of wisdom. What about good judgment? That seems to be an obviously useful quality for anyone. But it also depends upon something. It depends upon what you consider to be good. He had good judgment in business and he became very, very wealthy, but he ended up all alone in life. That is the Ebenezer Scrooge ending. She had good judgment about people and was surrounded by many friends and loved ones, though she was of modest means throughout her entire life. Those examples aren't changed in any way by adding more life experience or more knowledge. You could still end up on your own, alone. You could still end up financially struggling regardless of your good judgment informed by that additional information or experience. Those are two desirable endpoints, and they don't necessarily have anything to do with one another. Nevertheless, the definition of wisdom is probably intended as a set. You have to have the experience, you have to have the knowledge, and you have to have the good judgment in order to be wise. I suppose that's better, even if my examples of the rich but lonely man and the poor but cared for woman, still present us with complexities. But what would the fun of a sermon be without those complexities? Are these three qualities of experience, knowledge, and judgment enough? Are they enough for someone to be wise? Am I wise if I did stuff, learned stuff, and then made some decisions about stuff? Is that wisdom? Or if it turns out fine, is that just being fortunate? I remember one of my clients from when I was a lawyer. Someone was sucking up to him during a long negotiation session, telling him what a smart businessman he was and all this blah, blah, blah. And my client, to his credit, responded, yeah, I was smart enough to have inherited from the right father. Now, honestly, that degree of self-knowledge actually comes off as pretty wise in my book, which suggests to me that we need at least another component to flesh out our sense of wisdom. But I will get to that. I will also note that this dictionary definition of wisdom implies that young people cannot be wise. Maybe that is an inherent aspect of wisdom. It just takes time to develop. Someone who is younger has had fewer experiences compared to their elders. The elder might also know more, or at least relatively more, as a matter of education or life experiences, or simply, being on the planet longer. But then that third crucial piece comes along, good judgment. You could almost, and I say almost, throw out the other ones right away and just keep good judgment. As long as I have good judgment, do I really need to worry about the extent of my life experiences or the depth of my knowledge? Yes, probably yes. I need all of that. I need the whole package. Because if you were to lack one of those ingredients in the recipe, it's just something else. Having experience is important because it allows you to make decisions across varied situations that you may have seen before. Having knowledge is important because it gives you more grist for the mill, more possibilities to ponder when you're considering what to do and what not to do. We all have to make choices, but that doesn't mean that we have good judgment when we're making those choices. So it's better to make an informed decision implying both experience and knowledge. Good judgment may not be possible without both experience and knowledge to assess what is really best in any situation we come across. But whether a decision is good depends upon what we want to see happen. If my choices lead to a successful career, that's a great thing, unless the path also precludes having a happy family life, which I also might consider important. If instead my choices lead to that rich family life, but I'm scraping by financially, that might be a problem if I also value success or wealth or whatever. The relative good in a situation will vary from person to person, and may even vary from time to time in that same person's life. Talk about complexities. Wisdom is connected in this way to what we value. Having success in life or having a successful family life are both goals that imply a set of values. The wise person is seeking something, like the three magi following the Christmas star. There is also a story. It's a story. It's not in the Bible, but it's a story about a fourth wise man. It's a short story by Henry Van Dyke called The Other Wise Man. This fourth man was supposed to meet up with the other three, but along the way to meeting them, he stops to help a dying man. The three magi and their caravan just leave without him. The fourth man has brought along three great treasures to give to the newborn king, but he sells one of them to outfit his new expedition to follow the others to the west, and that takes time. It takes so much time that he arrives late to Bethlehem. The Holy Family has fled to Egypt to avoid King Herod's men. The fourth wise man then has to sell another of his treasures to save the life of a child. He travels about from kingdom to kingdom, still looking for the new king. He does that for 33 years, that's dedication, until he enters Jerusalem in time for the crucifixion of Jesus. And afterward, the fourth wise man, he sells his last treasure, and he uses the money to free a woman who is about to be sold into slavery. He then lays dying, thinking that he has failed in his mission in life to find Jesus. And at the end of the story, he hears a voice, and the voice says, "Verily I say unto thee, insomuch as thou hast done it unto the least of these my brethren, thou hast done it unto me." These words are from the Gospel of Matthew. They are a message from Jesus offered to those who served and cared for others, and in doing so, cared for unknowingly God himself during their lives. The fourth wise man had spent all of his three gifts, his three treasures, to help other people. And in this way, his gifts were accepted by God, and the man could die knowing that he had finally found his king. Along with experience, knowledge, and good judgment, I think wisdom implies that one additional thing. Wisdom requires goodness. Experiences of goodness, knowledge of the good, judgment that leads us toward the good. There needs to be something beyond observing that everything just turned out well for someone, whatever that means. It's not enough for someone to be wise rather than lucky. Perhaps I'm trying to graft a moral dimension onto this concept of wisdom unnecessarily, but I don't think so. In my estimation, a wise person does not do bad things. Wisdom cannot lead us to evil, it cannot lead us to selfishness. In the gospel reading, the wise men were truly wise because they came to understand something, that King Herod was a bad man. And they then acted to save this young family by warning them. Not because they were, long-lived, not because they were well-read, not because they were, capable in judgment without this additional notion of knowing right from wrong. Wisdom requires an understanding of the good, and in that way, an understanding of God, an understanding of what God seeks from us in this life. The wise man or the wise woman takes care of others. And wisdom is, or at least wisdom should be, the pathway which leads us toward the good, and the pathway which leads us ever towards God. Amen.
We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we traverse afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Born a king on Bethlehem's plain, God I bring to crown him again, King forever, ceasing never, over us all to reign. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light. Frankincense to offer have I, incense odds a the earth and skies. Oh, star of wonder, star of night, star with royal beauty bright, westward leading, still proceeding, guide us to thy perfect light.
Let us end our time together in prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. Our service is ended. May our service to God and to one another never truly end. Be safe, be well. God bless you all, and goodbye.